The room went quiet in a way that felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. A few people laughed nervously. Someone whispered something they probably shouldn't have. Two men stood facing each other on a worn mat, one confident, one calm, and in that still moment, something unspoken was about to change everything. Before we go any further, if stories like this matter to you, stories that carry real voices and real emotion, take a second to subscribe to the Black Voices. Like the video if it speaks to you, and share your thoughts in the comments. This space exists because of conversations, like the one you're listening to right now. The building sat just off a busy street in a mid-sized American city, the kind of place people passed every day without noticing. It was a mixed-use community center with a small gym downstairs, classrooms upstairs, and hallways that always smelled faintly of cleaning solution and old coffee. Early mornings belonged to the janitorial staff and a handful of dedicated regulars who came to train before work. Evenings brought kids, parents, and adults trying to sweat out the stress of the day. Marcus had worked there for nearly 8 years. Most people just called him the janitor, even though his job title said facilities maintenance. He was in his late 40s, tall but slightly hunched from years of physical labor, with salt and pepper hair kept close to his scalp. He moved quietly, always with a broom, mop, or trash cart nearby, like part of the building itself. He knew which doors stuck in winter, which lights flickered, and which classrooms echoed the most. People didn't talk to Marcus much. Not because he was unfriendly. He smiled easily, nodded hello, asked how someone's day was going if they seemed open to it. But most folks were busy. Some barely noticed him at all. He had learned a long time ago not to take that personally. Work was work. Life was life. Downstairs, the gym hosted a martial arts program that had grown popular over the years. It was run by a man named Ryan, a black belt with a solid reputation. He was younger than Marcus by at least 15 years. Athletic, confident, and used to being respected. Students admired him. Parents trusted him. Other instructors deferred to him. His presence filled the room when he walked in. Ryan was good at what he did. There was no denying that. He had trained for years, competed, won medals, and built a name for himself. The gym walls were decorated with framed photos and certificates, many of them featuring him. He worked hard for that status, and deep down, he knew it. The two men existed in the same space for years without really knowing each other. Ryan saw Marcus in passing, pushing his cart, along the hallway or wiping down the benches in the gym after class. Marcus saw Ryan teaching classes, correcting stances, raising his voice to motivate students. They exchanged polite nods now and then. That was it. One Saturday afternoon, the gym hosted an open sparring session. It was casual, meant for adults who trained regularly and wanted extra practice. The mood was light. Music played softly from a speaker. People stretched, joked, wrapped their hands. Ryan walked around offering tips, pairing people up. Marcus was finishing up his shift that day. He had been asked to stay a little later because of the event. He swept the edges of the mat area, careful not to interrupt. He had on his usual work clothes, loose pants, a faded hoodie, worn sneakers. He moved with an economy that came from habit, not from trying to impress anyone. At some point, Ryan noticed him watching, not staring, just watching. Calm, observant, respectful. Marcus leaned on his broom for a moment, eyes following the movement on the mat. Ryan caught that look and smirked. He walked over, still wrapping his hands. In a tone that sounded friendly on the surface, he asked Marcus if he ever trained. Marcus smiled and shook his head, said he just liked watching. Ryan laughed lightly and said everyone likes watching until they try it. A couple of students nearby overheard and chuckled. Someone joked that Marcus should give it a shot. Ryan leaned into it, saying they were just sparring for fun, nothing serious. He said it would be good exercise, a break from cleaning floors. Marcus hesitated, not in fear, but in thought. He looked down at his clothes, then back at Ryan. He said he didn't have the right gear. Ryan waved it off, saying it was fine, they'd go light. Just movement, just fun. There was something in the way Ryan said it. Not cruel, not openly disrespectful, but casual in a way that carried assumptions. Marcus felt that familiar tightening in his chest, the one that came from being underestimated. He had felt it many times in his life, in different forms, in different rooms. He started to decline. He said he really should finish up. Ryan shrugged and smiled, said no pressure, but added that it might be fun to see what he had. The room's attention shifted. People paused their stretching, Phones came out, half joking, half curious. Marcus stood there for a moment, broom in hand, surrounded by a circle that hadn't existed a minute earlier. He thought about his knees, his back, the years he'd spent doing work that didn't leave much room for mistakes. He thought about the long road that had brought him here, a road very few people in that room knew anything about. Then he set the broom aside. He asked if they really wanted to do this. Ryan laughed and said absolutely, just for fun. Marcus stepped onto the mat. Up close, the differences between them were clear. Ryan was lean and explosive, dressed in training gear, moving with the bounce of someone used to being watched. Marcus looked like what he was, a working man at the end of his shift. Hands rough, shoulders heavy, face calm. Someone offered Marcus a pair of spare gloves. He slipped them on, slowly testing the fit. Ryan bounced lightly on his feet, smiling, telling everyone to relax, saying this was just a friendly round. The first few seconds were exactly what everyone expected. Ryan circled, threw a light jab, pulled it back. Marcus moved back, not clumsily but cautiously. People laughed softly, assuming they were in on a harmless joke. Then something shifted. Marcus's feet settled in a way that didn't match the image people had formed of him. His shoulders relaxed. His breathing slowed. He wasn't stiff or panicked. He was present. Ryan noticed it too, though he didn't understand it yet. He threw another controlled strike, just enough to test. Marcus deflected it with a small movement, barely visible, like brushing dust off a table. The laughter stopped. Ryan raised an eyebrow, still smiling, and increased the pace slightly. Marcus matched it, not with speed, but with timing. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't flashy. He was efficient. A minute passed. Then another. Ryan began to sweat, not from exertion, but from confusion. He tried angles, feints, combinations he had drilled 1,000 times. Marcus stayed calm, stepping just out of reach, redirecting energy, never overcommitting. People around the mat fell silent. The phone stayed up, but now no one was joking. Ryan finally asked, half laughing, where Marcus learned to move like that. Marcus didn't answer right away. He waited for an opening, gently tapped Ryan's shoulder with a gloved hand, then stepped back. That was the moment the room truly changed. Ryan nodded, respect creeping into his expression. He said okay, and this time there was no humor in it. He focused. He engaged fully. What followed wasn't a domination. It wasn't a humiliation. It was something more unsettling and more profound. Marcus didn't try to win. He controlled the space. He guided the exchange. When Ryan pressed, Marcus absorbed and redirected. When Ryan rushed, Marcus sidestepped. When Ryan overextended, Marcus gently reminded him why balance mattered. 10 minutes in, Ryan called a pause. He stood there breathing hard, hands on his knees, eyes locked on Marcus. The room felt charged, like everyone was witnessing something they hadn't known they needed to see. Ryan asked again, more quietly this time, where Marcus learned all that. Marcus took off the gloves. He wiped his hands on his hoodie. He looked around at the faces staring back at him. Some wide-eyed, some thoughtful, some embarrassed. He said he used to train a long time ago. That was all. After the session ended, people crowded around Marcus with questions. How long had he trained? What style? Why didn't he ever say anything? He smiled politely, answered vaguely, and excused himself. He still had floors to finish. Ryan watched him go, something heavy settling in his chest. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Ryan started greeting Marcus differently. Not with a nod, but with conversation. He asked about his day, asked about his life. One morning, he asked if Marcus would be willing to help with a beginner's class sometime just to show fundamentals. Marcus hesitated, said he wasn't an instructor anymore. Ryan said he didn't need titles, just experience. Marcus agreed on one condition, that it never be about showing off, that it always be about respect. The class loved him, not because he was mysterious or surprising, but because he taught with patience. He spoke about listening to your body, about knowing when to push and when to rest. He talked about discipline as care, not punishment. Kids listened. Adults listened too. One evening after class, Ryan stayed behind to clean up with Marcus. They talked while they worked, mopping floors side by side. Ryan asked about Marcus's past, really asked this time. Marcus told him. He talked about growing up in a rough neighborhood, finding martial arts as a teenager, using it as an anchor. He talked about competing, teaching, dreaming big. He talked about injuries, about choices, about life pulling him in different directions, about how he ended up doing work that paid the bills but didn't carry his name. He said none of it with bitterness. Just honesty. Ryan listened, the mop forgotten in his hands. He admitted that he had made assumptions, that he hadn't meant harm, but he understood now that intention didn't erase impact. Marcus nodded. He said most people didn't mean harm. They just didn't look closely enough. Word of that sparring session spread, not as a joke, not as gossip, but as a quiet legend. People told it differently depending on who they were. Some focused on the surprise, others on the skill. A few talked about humility. Marcus didn't correct any of them. What mattered more was what happened in the building. People started saying hello to him by name, asking his opinion, inviting him to sit in on discussions. Kids waved when they saw him in the hallway. Parents thanked him for helping their children. Ryan changed too. He became more thoughtful in how he spoke, how he invited people into the space. He emphasized that the mat didn't care about titles or uniforms. That respect wasn't something you demanded. It was something you earned and something you gave. Months later, during another open session, a new student joked about sparring Marcus. The room went quiet for a second. Marcus laughed, waved it off, and said he'd already had his fun. Everyone laughed too, but this time it was different. It wasn't at his expense. It was with him. The building still looked the same from the outside. Same brick walls, same busy street. People still passed by without noticing. But inside something had shifted. It wasn't about a janitor surprising a black belt. It was about seeing the whole person standing in front of you. About understanding that everyone carries stories you can't see by looking. About realizing that respect shouldn't be reserved for moments of spectacle. Marcus kept doing his job. He still swept floors and wiped benches. But now when he leaned on his broom and watched a class, people noticed. They listened. They learned. And Ryan never again asked anyone to spar, just for fun without first asking who they were. In the end, what stayed with everyone wasn't the skill on the mat, but the lesson off it. That dignity doesn't announce itself. That wisdom often wears work clothes. And that when we slow down enough to truly see each other, we all walk away a little less loud and a lot more human. If this story stirred something in you, hold on to that feeling. Let it remind you to look twice, to listen longer, and to meet people where they are. Share your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments. Somewhere, someone's voice is waiting to be heard. And sometimes all it takes is the courage to pay attention.